Hello and welcome to Taking Liberties, episode 30. My name is Lee, and this joining me is Vikas in Canberra.
Hey,
And this episode is our final episode for 2016, and we're going to be talking this week about the Sydney Pryor case. Continues to drag on, sadly.
so much drama.
So much drama. And we're also going to talk about the NBN Co. And the tax that's sort of been announced, or has sort of been talked about anyway today.
It's in a discussion in a committee. So I think if not just we, but if people discuss this and there's plenty of negative feedback, it might not go ahead. But having said that, though, I'll put my controversial opinion on it a little bit later.
Okay, all right.
But yeah.
So at the moment, we'll start off with the Sydney Pryor case. So if you're not in the know, Cindy Pryor. I keep wanting to say Sydney Pryor. I don't know why. If I say that, I apologise.
Sydney Pryor, by the way, is a reference to pre-2014 Sydney policy,
Sure.
when Sydney actually was a city.
Okay, all right. So the Cindy Pryor case was where a bunch of students. I think we might have even talked about it last time. I think.
Yeah, we talked about it precisely last time because
Then
that's
we just
what the case
go
was.
back to episode 29 and catch up on the details. The current drama is that Cindy Pryor is now facing $200,000 in legal fees, but also there's been an investigation ongoing. I'm finding it hard to English today. There's an investigation.
Fine. I'll do it. Yeah, the QUT has opened up a case looking at potential breaches of privacy policy from Cindy Pryor's lawyers accessing private student information from the university itself. There's a question whether that information was obtained illegally, not illegally, in breach of their privacy policy.
You have to wonder though, at what point does it doesn't really matter that much at this point, because it's like, well, she lost the case. I guess she is appealing, so theoretically.
No. It's basically to stave off any potential cases coming from those kids, because they had the case thrown out against them.
Yep.
Right, but it was based on information taken from QUT. If there was malfeasance on the part of the university, right, as in their privacy, as in they breached it willingly.
Yep.
Right, then the students can sue them for damages as well.
Oh, okay. All right.
So effectively, it's to avoid malfeasance on their part. Is it malfeasance? No, I think it's actually negligence. Sorry, I'm confusing some of my legal terminology, but basically it's to avoid being shown negligent with respect to their privacy policy in accordance with the Privacy Act. So that's what they're trying to avoid. And if their investigation shows that there was something untoward that happened, they can then pass it as a criminal thing to the police or whatever it was, to say that there was a breach of our policy, and those individuals that were responsible for that are then how do you want to put it? Are then subject to any civil proceedings from those students. So it's basically the university covering itself.
Okay. So yeah, I guess that's
it's interesting because this case, in addition to showing how retarded 18C's, the regulation around whether an 18C case is brought forward or not, it showed a level of I don't know, incompetence from the HRC. Actually, no, I would say no, not incompetence. Incompetence is not the malevolence.
okay.
Yeah, because there were students that were charged were threatened under 18C for their comments, and the first they ever heard about it, because the entire point of the AHRC is to undergo some
The Australian Human Rights Council, for those who are wondering.
Sorry, the entire point of 18C and the Human Rights Council Tribunal involvement in this is that they're meant to find a way to resolve these cases outside of court. Right, and if possible, they're meant to make the very, very strong recommendation to people not to take this to court. And Cindy Pryor's case is a stellar example where the judge has not just dismissed the case, but he's gone, "You have wasted our time, and I'm going to slap you with the full financial burden of this. You should have accepted the apology in the first place."
Yeah.
Right, and a judge is absolutely, and we're all sitting here going like, yeah, the judge is absolutely right to have done that. So judges can actually enact simple common sense in a courtroom, and people should be aware of that. And in this case, that's precisely what's happened. A judge has sat there and went, I've accepted the reasons from them. I'm summarily dismissing this case, and you are now in charge of. You are now forced to pay all the court costs and legal costs for both sides, which is how our common law system works.
Yeah.
So she's now probably going to default on that 200K legal bill that she now has.
Yeah.
They haven't put forward a counterclaim for damages, and personally, I think that might be a little bit of a stretch for some of them. I think Thwaites might have a probable, because he's becoming a lawyer, and there's going to be the entire fit and proper test that comes in where this case might be bring that into question. But I don't think the others necessarily have that same damages. But
it's a shame that the Human Rights Commission the Human Rights Commission isn't on the hook for any of this. Like they're at the moment getting away with all of their bad behaviour. Like, I guess there could be some sort of recourse in terms of somehow if Parliament gets involved, but I don't think it will. So
no,
in some ways, I don't feel bad for Cindy Pryor, but I feel bad for her to the extent that she's going to be copying a 200K bill when
for
she's
a case
not.
that should have never gone forward.
Sure, but there's other
been...
people who share in that blame.
Yep.
And they're not going bankrupt where she is. I mean, I don't feel that much sympathy, but I feel just a smidge, just in terms that she alone is going to pay the price and go bankrupt. Price, pun intended. But there should be others who should be, Gillian Triggs and all the rest of those clowns. They should be copying some of this as well.
Gillian Triggs didn't have much to do with this case, and when she did get involved, she got it spectacularly wrong.
Yeah.
So when she got involved, she made the claim that this guy had been involved in the process from the beginning, or something like this. This guy had moved to Canada to work. I can't remember his name, but one of the guys was in Canada, and he paid $5,000 to settle the case.
Yeah.
And because it was a nuisance thing, he didn't want to deal with it. He didn't want to come back to Australia to deal with it. Yeah. He didn't this looming over his head. So he paid $5,000, and he's a professional in Canada. It's not much for him. So Gillian Triggs refunded the money out of the pocket of the Human Rights Council, which I'm sitting there and I'm going yeah, that's not how it should have worked, right? That's like you've made a mistake by allowing this case to go through. The person paid it, and now you've gone around and given the money back. I'm sorry, that's manifestly an example of how you are not running a regulatory agency correctly, right? Because if you're telling me that should not have happened, and that you've made this categorically, a tribunal by definition requires three parties, right? An arbitrator and the two people that are having the dispute. If you're telling me that one of the parties was never involved, right, and then you allowed the case to go through, that tells me you did not have a tribunal. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's a definitional thing there. So, I mean, the way that she's actually running this organization can be shown, right, just from this case, to be manifestly inadequate to its statutory authority. And I don't think there is. I don't think the case has been made strong enough that Gillian Triggs is actually not running the AHRC how it should be.
Sure. I mean, I can't disagree at all. Now, I was actually thinking about this week. I thought I might change the topic slightly, since we've probably covered that in as much depth as it needs to be. Is there too much overemphasis on ANC, though, for libertarians? It's like, it seems, in terms of, all the think tanks, all the kind of public discussion, Liberty Works, like all everybody who's sort of involved in the Liberty movement seems to be incredibly focused about ANC.
It's because
is there too much attention paid to it? Like, I mean, yes, it is a problem. We've covered it a number of times, but it's like 100 cases in 20 years or something.
It's
more. It's not, compared to other injustices, it doesn't seem to be that great.
Sure, but it's also the most... Okay, so out of all of the anti-free speech laws, right? Yeah. And there's a few of them, right? David opposed the one that would make contractors who are whistleblowers, right? He would from being fired, right? He basically stopped that law from going ahead. So I mean, tried to stop. It actually passed with Labor's help. But the point is, it's not as if we don't oppose these restrictions to free speech.
Sure,
We do.
but like in terms of the activism,
But if you take a look at it, that law is enacted. It hasn't been enacted yet. There's not even one person on that, but we still oppose it.
Yeah.
But if you take a look at it, like out of all the possible laws, right? You've got 18C. You've got the intimidating or harassment through through the postal service in the Postal Act. You've got intimidating or threatening messages through telecommunications in the Telecommunications Act, actually now superseded by the NBN Act. There's loads of examples where free speech is curtailed based on platform and media. We do oppose them on various levels, but if you take a look at it, the only law that is really threatening to free speech and is actively used in the greatest number is 18C. So, I mean, the only one that could possibly be more than that is vexatious defamation cases. And I do believe that defamation needs to be brought back into line with what the taught understanding of defamation is, instead of the statutory definition of defamation, which is significantly looser.
Sure. So, I mean, I guess I'm bringing up the concept not just on the issue of free speech, because I mean, really, if 18C is the only threat to free speech in Australia,
It's not.
It's not.
It's the largest.
Sure, but like even if that's the largest, then the threat is not very big, really.
No, it's not. No.
So, like, could libertarians, and liberty-minded people, be overemphasizing this thing when there is a vast array of ongoing terrible things that are going on that the government does?
Well,
I mean, okay, I'll give my theory for why 18C sticks out. I think it's very high profile, and it gets the troops, ready to fight. So I met John Roscombe at a Liberal Party thing last year, I think it was, and he talked about how after Andrew Bott was prosecuted, and they started talking about this issue, like heaps of donations came in, heaps of people signed up to be members of the IPA, like all the campaigns. So, it's something that hypes the troops up, and people are on board for. Is that, I mean, I don't know, is that justification enough to focus on it heaps?
I don't think it's over-focused on, but I do agree with you. There are other things, but I've never seen, and this is why I don't necessarily buy into the argument that these free speech issues are dichotomous with other issues. I've never seen libertarians ever shy away from a fight, or a debate. You're right. It might be sucking all of the oxygen out when there's a whole bunch of other topics to talk about, but that's not really a problem for libertarians. That's a problem for everyone else. Because libertarians, if you change the topics, they will. If you change the topic in front of a libertarian from 18C to say the minimum wage, I guarantee you they will switch topics immediately and talk about why the minimum wage is bad.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point.
Yeah, it is. What you are talking about is specifically a problem to. Okay, so everybody else
to conservatives, really. I mean, they're the other people that were sort of honest with us on this journey to sort of defeat 18C.
Yep.
I guess,
basically the squirrels. I just go, they'll be like, squirrel.
The what? Sorry? The squirrel.
Squirrel.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just go squirrel and just dart off in a different direction. Yeah, no, so it's...
I thought it was terrorists with conservatives.
It used to be.
Terrorists.
It used to be.
I don't know. I think they're still pretty hyped about the terrorists.
It used to be terrorists. Now it's asylum seekers.
True.
Oh, look, this is an asylum seeker. Look, there's a boat.
Yeah.
Stop it.
They're on the dole with their multiple wives, according to Scott Morrison, today. Polygamy, apparently some massive problem for Centrelink.
Is it?
Well, according to Scott Morrison, he came out and said that, I don't... God knows what he was saying. Something about
So polygamy. Hang on. Let me get this straight. So polygamy is a massive problem, but the guy, all those dudes on frickin' welfare running around and banging different chicks and getting them all pregnant.
Sure.
I mean, 6 or 7 different.
That's it.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Right?
Well,
the problem is polygamy, where they're legally married and have
actually
created
in a relationship at least.
Yeah, and they've created this restrictive covenant amongst themselves and property sharing arrangement, as opposed to these people who don't have that, and are basically running around bonking like rabbits.
Yeah. Well, terrorists and Muslims, come on. They're clearly more dangerous.
Sure, whatever.
Yeah, anyway, we were saying... So, yes,
Absolutely.
No, you're totally right. Like, libertarians would... Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like, libertarians always talk about the thing that's in front of them. So
I've heard this argument several times before, like 3 times now. Not just from you, but from 2 other people. That why is it all on 18C? What's stoking this? Is there a perception out there that there's too much focus on 18C in the libertarian community?
Well, I think that it's really, to be honest, it's one of the few things that gets consistently talked about. Like, it's all the time.
Well, yeah,
so, if you get an email from
the minimum wage,
IPA, the CIS, basically any organization that is involved in any sort of liberty type stuff.
Yeah,
18C is going to be there at least once a week between any one of them, like between the group of them, where I don't think it doesn't really, like drug policy, for example. I mean, I wouldn't expect the IPA or the CIS to come up in favor of drug legalization. But
really?
even,
they have.
They have.
They have in the past.
Oh, okay, good. Well, that's great. I wasn't. I mean, it's well for all those hacks in the Liberal Party who are making their way up through the IPA. It's a bit edgy to go out there and say let's legalize drugs, but
I feel like now I have to go grab like work by people like don't worry.
Well, I guess maybe my skepticism was mainly because of their hybrid organizations. Like, it's not that I don't think they're great organizations. It's just that, like, I think they're hybrids. They've got free market conservatives who generally are not in favor of drug legalization, as well as some libertarians. In my sort of observation. So, yeah, I mean, I remember Benjamin Herskovich at the CIS saying how we should be bombing Syria and all this other stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, that's not really a libertarian perspective, but that's because they're not a libertarian organization. So I don't ding them for not being libertarian when they're not, explicitly anyway.
Yeah, I've started coming around on the idea of bombing random countries. It's just I'm just saying it seems like a fun thing to do.
Well, when you fly the drones, I'm sure it is.
No, I'm actually being facetious there. But yeah, I mean, I do understand.
Like, I do think, like, I think 18C, like, compared to the actual amount of cases or the amount of actual sort of direct impact it has on people's lives, compared to a whole range of other things, yeah, I think 18C is probably overstated. But if people are on board for it, and I guess that's where I've sort of maybe I've even persuaded myself to have a different perspective through just talking about it. If people are on board to oppose this thing, then let's do the thing that people are on board to oppose. Like, I mean, that's like if
no, I actually agree with you. And if I were to pick a topic that is far more insidious than 18C, it's actually our censorship laws, because they very quietly and in the background, with bureaucrats working behind the scenes, are censoring more and more content. You might have noticed that songs with the word gun in them are now censored.
Really? I did not notice that.
Oh, yeah. I'm serious.
So it's not just hardcore, like, pornographic anime? Like,
No, it's actually far more insidious. And it's all happening very quietly, because it's happening by bureaucracy, by the actual bureaucracy. It's happening through the OLFC and the Radio Standards Board.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and it's same with advertising regulations. They're very, very, very subversive, and people don't notice it because you just don't see it.
I guess the difficulty in reforming that, we should actually move on after I make this point, because we're getting to 20 minutes. The difficulty in reforming anything to do with censorship, though, is you need to get on board all the attorneys generals from the states. And as we saw with the R18 stuff with that guy from South Australia, I can't even remember his name.
Michael Atkinson.
Yeah. Like, all you need is one person to be... To basically be the social conservative, and then you're just going nowhere.
Okay. So here's the thing: if you need to reform it, you are absolutely right. It is slow and thinger. You know what you can do though? Repeal it.
Okay. Yeah. That's a fair point. Yeah. Having said that, though, I think they'd probably
no.
As political cover, they'd probably want to get all the attorneys general on board for it.
Oh, fuck it! Just go repeal it. No,
Well,
I'm just like, this is what, like, it's so insidious and it's so bottom level. Nobody notices it, right?
yeah.
Like, if you got rid of it on a repeal day, nobody would fucking notice it.
The people would notice it.
No,
You're
no, no.
totally wrong about that.
No, I guarantee
I,
you don't.
I no,
Until years and years
no.
after, sorry, until
You
months
think
after the fact.
you think
Yeah.
the Office for Film and Literature Classification Board, if they repealed that, no one would notice?
No,
You
they
honestly
won't.
think?
No, no, no. Listen, I said no one would notice until months
No,
after.
okay. I would
Months after it's happened.
I would bet you $100 that they
I'll
would
take
notice.
it. I'll take it. I'll take
Okay,
it.
if they're going to repeal it by stealth,
and the reason why I'll take it is because the film classification board, like it approves movies for up to 6 months ahead, like for 6 months at 6 month time blocks.
sure.
Right. You get rid of it. The first movie that is not been reviewed is going to be 6 months down the line. Right. That's why I'm
what
just
you
like,
don't
that's
understand. The Australian Christian lobby lives for this shit. I kid you not. As soon as they get a whiff of it, they will. Every single Christian and social conservative organisation in the country will be talking about the degenerates. Vikas and I are the degenerate trying to repeal the classification.
No, don't do it.
And so it will get in the press.
No, don't do it as one bill. Do it as part of the whole repeal day. Nobody reads those.
No, they will. They'll find it. Okay, all right. Well, let's move on. We'll save that bet for when it actually becomes a reality, which it won't. But if we can have the bet. So let's talk about what was the other thing we were talking about?
The NBN tax.
NBN tax. Yeah. So basically, today it's sort of come out in the media that that the terminal government's looking to charge basically all telecommunications companies $7.50 to begin with per connection as a tax to essentially subsidise the sort of regional rollout of the NBN.
So here's the thing. The entire point of the NBN was to kind of do this anyway through its pricing. So the history of this is there used to be something called the RTIRC, Regional Telecommunications something Regulatory Commission. Industry, right. Regional Telecommunications Industry Regulatory Commission. So RTIRC, which controlled the pricing so that the cities would cross-subsidize rural areas. And the idea behind that was Telecom or Telstra would basically have an incentive to shove out broadband into the country. This was the story from like about 2001 to 2009. RTIRC has now been folded into the ACCC. So the ACCC now controls that pricing. So it's kind of already done in the very sort of loosest way in the background where people in the city might notice that you might notice that for the last couple of years, you're still paying $33 to $38 for a phone line, despite the fact that the actual capex on that is about $2.
Yeah.
Right? So you're still paying heaps more than it costs because you need to fund the new connections out in regional Australia. Now, what they want to do is make that more explicit through a tax. Now, my main problem with this is twofold. Firstly, I don't like the fact that it's a tax because it goes into general revenue, right? When things go into general revenue, they get spent on anything.
Yep.
Literally anything.
Yep.
So if it were up to me, what I would do is I would actually impose a levy on NBN users specifically. And I know that I'm on the NBN and I'm effectively arguing that I should be taxed. But I would argue that the NBN users should be specifically charged an extra fee with the current user base basically funding a direct model towards the rollout over the course of the lifetime. And then once the rollout is complete, basically start allowing the market pricing to kick in. So which would mean the city initially cross-subsidizes, and then eventually it becomes cheaper than the regional areas and everybody evens out over the long term. On the specifically to NBN Co,
Sure.
which is the government business.
The question I would ask then is, I mean, there's a good chance that if you only charge NBN Co customers, you're gonna have to charge more because at the moment they're looking to sort of charge $7.50 to basically everybody who has a connection.
Yeah, including the competition who aren't on the NBN Co.
Which is rude as hell, but it'd be $7.50. Say that theoretically, which it probably doesn't, but say it theoretically covers the costs.
Yep.
It's $7.50, but if you put it all into NBN Co, won't you have issues with now you're charging NBN Co customers more. Customers start leaving.
They can't.
Potentially?
It's a terrestrial monopoly.
Okay.
They can't leave it. That's the only reason I said charge the NBN Co customers
Okay.
for it.
All right.
And basically have it on a rotating scale. Have it on a scale where so basically the early adopters pay for it, and then at the very end, the cost is normalized. And the idea is over time, like all those NBN Co areas that are older, right? The price for that will drop significantly.
Yep.
Because the cost of providing to those areas is well established, it's well built up, and once you've rolled it out, what you do is you'd implement some sort of market pricing structure, and what you would have is the city areas or the highly urbanized areas now all of a sudden dropping in price.
When you say a market price, as in, would that be still set by the government?
It'd be set by the RSPs who compete with each other.
All right, okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. All right. Well, that's probably that topic covered. Is there anything else you wanted to comment about that?
There are problems with what I'm talking about because it is a explicit subsidy. What I'm talking about, right? Early adopters are paying for later entrants, the thing is, I have no, like, as a libertarian, I oppose this entire concept, but this is how businesses operate anyway, right? Yeah. Effectively, this would be the government operating like any other business. It's just like when an iPhone 7 comes out, it costs $1,200. If you buy it 6 months down the line, it's $900. If you buy it, 12 months down the line, it's nearly half price, right?
Yeah, sort of, not quite. Well,
yeah, I mean, iPhone 6, now that the iPhone 7...
Yeah,
6
sure,
out,
yeah,
now that the 7's out...
I understand that.
Yeah,
I'm just in terms of...
It's a similar concept. I'm saying, like, early you pay for the bleeding edge.
Okay, maybe. I need to think about it more. I need to think about it at a longer time period than we have. Yeah, it's 3 minutes.
Yeah. It's not exactly the same because there's new iterations coming out, and here you're just basically laying the pipe, right? So it's not exactly the same, but
I guess like it wouldn't be the same because if NBN Co was actually a private company, it wouldn't necessarily do this.
If NBN Co was a private company, they would definitely do this, but they would have picked a different rollout map. What they would have done is basically build up Sydney.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. They would have built up Sydney.
Yeah, sure.
And once Sydney was built up, they would have then moved up to Melbourne.
Yeah.
And once Melbourne was built up, then they'd move out to Brisbane.
And then they'd go to Perth, and then they'd go,
No, they wouldn't come out to Perth. Like, it would take forever to get out. Yeah, like, it would be... basically, you'd do up the entire East Coast, and maybe you'd have satellite grids and stuff like that on the fringes of Perth with, like, some wireless in Perth, and then eventually in the city of Perth, in the very city centre.
Yep.
But what I'm talking about is very similar to the ADSL rollout. If it was a private company...
Well, so maybe you can sort of inform me, but, like, in Busselton, like my home, there's 2 whole suburbs full with, like, they have optic fibre rollout. I mean, essentially it was the Telstra Smart Communities. It's essentially the NBN. They were doing that. I mean, the subdivisions were started about 12 years ago.
Yeah, so that's part of.
That's
part of a greenfield.
So why wouldn't NBN Co do a similar thing?
Mostly because the subsidies for that don't exist anymore. So there was a $6 billion injection from the Howard government in 2004, I think it was.
Okay, so that was essentially built because of a subsidy.
Oh no! So it was a pilot program looking into fiber to the node and high-speed fiber services for greenfield development areas. It was a little bit of money they set aside in the 2004 election, 2004 budget. But yeah, effectively, some companies took, like Simon Hackett and Internode took advantage of that in Brisbane, South Brisbane. What's the name of the company? Transact took advantage of that here in the ACT with respect to VDSL2. There was money set aside for it, but like the thing is, greenfield development. Yes, I will agree with you, particularly if it's on an incidental rollout map. So, like, if you're connecting up two cities,
Yep.
and there just happens to be some greenfield development going on,
All right.
it makes
Okay.
sense to do like a fiber to the home rollout in that space because it's cheap. You're not digging up to put it in because there's people building right there. You can just sneak in under their development, put it in, get out. So you're right. Incidental might happen, but that requires. That basically requires construction companies to go out to the telcos and go, look, I'm doing some greenfield development here.
Yep.
Right. We think fiber to this thing might help sell it. Are you keen to put some fiber into here? And they might work out a sort of deal where maybe the telco doesn't need to pay construction costs and they roll out fiber to all those places.
Yeah,
These sort of deals have been happening for a while before NBN started up. And when that 2009 piece of legislation came across, effectively guaranteeing terrestrial monopoly to NBN they just stopped.
Of course, yeah. Makes no sense.
Yep.
All right. Well, we probably can spend another minute or so. Do you have any final thoughts for 2016?
It's been a shit year.
It's
It didn't help that Paul McCartney died in the last 2 weeks, and I'll be honest. I've been listening to a lot of Beatles over the last 2 weeks, just because of that. I finally, So people might not know this, but one of the first songs that I learned how to play on my bass was Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles.
Yep.
So yeah.
Okay.
Little fact about me.
Sure, except he's not dead.
Is he?
No.
I got fake news.
You got fake news. That was going to be something we nearly talked about.
Ah.
You didn't do the simple thing of like Googling to see the Paul McCartney was actually dead.
I have to admit, I've been a little bit busy.
Okay, all right. Well, that's usually what I do. I saw that as well, and I'm like, this is a bit too convenient. So I Googled it, and he did. I just Googled it right now because I thought maybe you were trying to like play me or something, and I'm like,
no, I legitimately got fake news.
Well, no, you got fake news. Along with Hillary running a child sex ring.
Oh, Pizzagate. Oh, you know what? Can we extend the episode and talk about that? Because that was so fucking ridiculous.
We got a few minutes, and it's our show. We can do whatever the hell we want. So let's go for 5 more minutes.
Yeah, Pizzagate. So, first of all, that is the longest bow I've ever seen cast on anything.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there, I'm looking at this pizza, and it's just like they're talking about pizzas, and you know what? I'm reading the language. I'm going like, okay, I can see how that can be construed as euphemistic.
Yeah.
But like this seems really elaborate. I mean, do I believe that they'd have pedophiles who are stupid enough to communicate in this way?
Yep.
Yes. Do I believe that they were actually pedophiles who were stupid enough to connect this way? No, because they're political operators who are stupid in general.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the whole fake. So, I mean, the reason this whole fake news thing has gone on as it has since the election is because it's basically just been the latest kind of front in the culture wars. So that's why it's still got legs. But I mean, really, the whole conversation begins and ends with if you're dumb enough to believe this, then you really have there's no sympathy to be had for you. Like it is.
I was dumb enough to believe Paul McCartney died. Well, I mean, come on.
Yeah, but that's
at some stage,
that's not totally out of the realm of possibility. I mean, the guy's like 80 or whatever, so it's not like not too ridiculous to suggest that Paul McCartney's dead. Like it was back in the 70s. It's not so ridiculous now. But like, especially with all the people that have died. But like, just like I listened to Planet Money. They did a story where they looked at they interviewed one of these fake news, and that's one of these major media, Washington Post and New York Times and all the rest. They're all going out and finding these operators who, these people who operate these like crazy sites, and it's just, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like when you read the titles, you're like, you really have to be into this stuff to buy into it. It's like people who think that Australia's become a corporation because we're listed in the US.
Oh, actually, so
it's like if you apply any logic to it whatsoever, it's like it just falls to pieces. But because you're already on board for that kind of stuff, you totally believe it.
And it's quite obvious the reason why we've done it. It's so that we can have the trademark Australia Proprietary Limited, or anything or anything like that to prevent someone else from pretending that they're in Australia.
Absolutely, and that makes total sense.
Yeah.
But if you tell it to somebody who believes that Australia's actually been overtaken and is now has overthrown the Queen and has become a corporation, like they just don't believe you because they're just hang
on, it doesn't matter because on December the 12th, 1931, King George recognised Australia as an independent country independent of British sovereignty.
Sure, and that's logic. These people don't live in a land of logic. They live in La La Land. And so I'm just like, I don't really care about that. I mean, it's funny to read the headlines because they're just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's really not a thing. This whole fake news thing is itself.
Having said that, though, despite the fact that, yes, there is some obvious fake news, and yes, I am well aware there are loads of examples of where the mainstream media have done exactly the same thing, where they've printed out fake news articles, blah, 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 blah. There's a particularly insidious group in both factional sort of party things going on, where it's pretty much everything I don't like is fake news.
Yeah.
Right? There is an element of that, and it's freaking hilarious.
It's called the culture war. That's what it is. That's what it drives what you're saying right now.
Yeah.
It's just everything I don't like is fake news.
Yeah.
Just like everything I didn't like before is bias. It's just how tribal humans operate.
It's actually funny because, like, I like to think that this show, for the last 3 years, despite the fact that, across all numbers and everything like that, we are not successful, guys. I'm serious. we hit 800 views, maybe 1,000 tops.
Yep.
Right. And most of you, and I'm talking like from that 800 or 900 views, only 190 of them actually watched the full show. Okay. So to those,
we love you though. Those of you who do it, we love you. A lot.
Yeah, we love you.
Lots of love to you.
Pretty much the reason why we do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
aside from being opinionated assholes who just don't care that no one watches us have our opinions.
Yeah.
That's the main driver. But you guys watching as well, that's another good thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just sitting there going like, and we have. I like to think that we've stayed out of the culture wars, but we probably haven't. We probably have
not
like.
entirely.
I don't. We've presented our own libertarian front in this culture war.
Well,
and,
to be fair, I mean, libertarians can get sucked into tribalism as well. To be, like if somebody said this government official did this terrible thing, libertarians would be like, "Oh my gosh, how did you possibly do that?" Like we can be drawn into that sort of stuff just as much as anybody else. But we have a
and
different
fake news.
sort
We
of
can definitely
tribalism.
be drawn into fake news.
yeah, absolutely. All right,
that's evidence.
Well, that's it. We're at 37 minutes. I think we'll call it there. It's been a good 2016 for this show, even though it's been a terrible 2016 for everything else.
And hopefully next year.
Except video games. Video games have been good.
Movies,
yeah.
I'm kicking myself for not having bought Watch Dogs 2 when it was on sale.
Is that good?
I have heard very good things about it.
Really? Okay, because I mean, Watch Dogs was so spectacularly bad. It was.
Yeah, the first one was pretty shit. But this is just me going on the reviews, right?
Okay.
People might want to consider, why don't people do demos anymore? I would love a demo of this game.
That's actually a really good thing to ask. Well, they probably do. Maybe if you go onto the Ubisoft client thing, maybe they'll have a demo.
You just told me to get AIDS on my computer to get a demo of
Watch Dogs. If you want to play Watch Dogs, you'd have to play it on the Ubisoft thing anyway.
No, you don't.
Don't you? Oh, okay.
Oh, wait, yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. It's still
like if you want to play
Steam
Battlefield.
Launches, you play, and then
exactly.
Yeah, it's just like, can game companies please stop doing that? Like, seriously, Steam is good enough as a DRM on its own. You don't need your own DRM. I'm sorry. You're just being retarded.
Yeah, they are being retarded, but it is what it is.
All right,
we'll call it there. Thank you everybody for a great 2016. We'll be back January some point. We got some pretty good plans.
I've got plans till the 2nd, but we can record on the 3rd.
Okay.
Actually, no, we can record on the 2nd because I arrived back on the 2nd.
All right. Okay.
Let's do it. Let's go.
All right, January 2, we'll be back. So thanks everybody. Have a great Christmas. Have a great New Year. We'll be back 2017. Bringing the liberty to your ears. Thanks for joining us.
Don't forget to like.
Comment,
subscribe.
That's it. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks, guys.
See ya.